Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. Stay updated on latest global issues with our expert analysis. We have two guests who will guide us through today's topics. We are joined by Professor Daejeon. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Thanks for having me again.
We are also joined by Dr. Jovian. Welcome.
Thank you.
Aircraft carriers are a symbol of countries' national status and military power. Countries in the Indo-Pacific region are competing to expand aircraft carrier fleets. Professor Lee, let's talk about China first. China looks active and determined to advancing its naval ambition, and it launched its third aircraft carrier. Could you tell our viewers about China's ambition with aircraft carriers?
There's a competition between the United States and China, especially in the West Pacific region, in other words, the Indo-Pacific regions. And in that sense, China needs a cutting-edge military assets. And in that sense, definitely, aircraft carriers are really important military power. So far, China has built three different aircraft carriers. The first one, it's built in 2012, the Liaoning aircraft carrier. It was first built as a training aircraft carrier. It's still able to carry around 40 aircraft. And they transferred the training aircraft carrier to a combat aircraft carriers. And in 2019, China commissioned another one called the Shandong aircraft carriers. Both the Liaoning and Shandong, they're using a ski jump launch systems. It's not a cutting edge technology. It's really I would say outdated systems because it's not really efficient. So recently, as I mentioned, the third aircraft carrier called the Fujian was launched in 2022 and just finished the maiden sea trials. They had a new catapult launching system that is way more efficient. The Fujian aircraft carrier can carry 50 to 60 aircraft. And by 2035, China is planning to have up to 6 aircraft carriers.
It costs a country an astronomical amount of money to build, operate, and maintain an aircraft carrier. The United States owns a fleet of 11 aircraft carriers. The United Kingdom and Italy each have 2, while Russia has 1. So, Dr. Jo, could you explain more about the most recent aircraft carrier built and in operation by China, the Fujian aircraft carrier?
We have to look at the number of 3 aircraft carriers. I think this number is significant because 3 is a strategic number in any kind of maritime operations. You need 3 warships to be able to be present at all time, continuously. For instance, 1 aircraft carrier would be at sea, operating. The second one would be at the port for overhaul and to be ready for the next operation. And then the third would be moving to and from the port and operationalizing sites. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that, as the name itself, there are aircraft carriers. Professor Lee already mentioned the latest one would be carrying about 55 to 60 aircrafts, and that is composed of about 40 J-15 fighter jets, helicopters, and early warning control aircraft. So it's will be able to project your power at sea and air, and you do it continuously by having 3.
Oh, I see. So important point here is that by maintaining at least 3 aircraft carriers, China can constantly circulate the aircraft carrier, at least 1 in operation all the time, while fixing at least 1 in the home base. And by carrying these aircraft carriers far distant from its mainland, China's air force power will not be only limited to its home base in China, but it's projected to anywhere in the globe.
Yes. That's right. Although they say officially they do not seek to expand their sphere of influence, but our common kind of consensus is that China is seeking to move beyond the first and second chain of islands into the Pacific Ocean. The first island chain is from the west part of North Sasebo to between Taiwan and north of the Philippines, and then it covers whole South China Sea. And then the second island chain is from the northwest of Japan, Yokosuka to Guam, Palau to Indonesia. And then it would be Pacific Ocean. So China plans to go through the first island chain and then achieve their kind of capability by 2040 to be able to go to the second island chain and then to the beyond. So considering these kind of underlying motivations, the aircraft carriers are very needed assets.
Although China is a big country, but it's a land-like country, so China's force projection toward the Pacific Ocean can be stopped by these two island chains with Japanese, Korean, Taiwanese, and the United States naval forces.
Yes.
Right? Despite China's push to this offensive capability, Professor Lee, can it really match with the United States? Because the United States must be the most formidable naval power with multiple aircraft carriers, right?
I would say the United States naval power is way superior to China, and definitely China cannot match the United States military power. I can analyze this from the quantitative and the qualitative perspective. First of all, you mentioned the United States have 11 aircraft carrier fleets, but China has only 3. When we look at deeply at more really specifically about each aircraft carrier's capabilities, among 11 aircraft carriers, the 10s are Nimitz-class aircraft carriers. They are all nuclear powered, and they are able to carry 70 to 80 jet fighters, for example. And there's another one, it's a General Ford class. It's a more update versions. And they are using electromagnetic systems to launching jet fighter, for example. And it's very more efficient and more reliable. It means that the United States can have more efficient and powerful and have a more cutting-edge military carriers. And also in terms of the quality about each aircraft carriers, to project military powers, aircraft carriers need a protection from other military assets. So we are calling this as a carrier strike groups. So usually the aircraft carrier is not doing the military operation alone. They are supported by, for example, the guided missile crews or anti-aircraft warships and the anti-submarine destroyers. So in terms of the CSG, the carrier strike groups capabilities, United States have way more superior, have way more military experience and know-how. And also the military personnels are well trained, way better, because the United States operated the aircraft carrier for over 7 decades. Like, think about it, embedded the people's experience and know-how, it's really important. It's not just like having an aircraft carrier mean they can win the victories. And also in terms of the aircraft capabilities, like United States, it's way superior. So I would say up to 2030 or up to 2040, I still think the Chinese Navy power cannot match to United States naval power. But here, the really important point is, but when we really focused on the Indo-Pacific region, then China has like not superior, but kind of equal. They want to be equal up to 2040 to match, to push back the United States military power, like as Dr. Zhou mentioned, beyond the first island chain, beyond the second island chain. So they want to dominate military power in the Indo-Pacific region specifically.
Okay. Dr. Zhou, according to Professor Lee's explanation, United States are far ahead of China. So what's the point of the worry for the United States about China?
I think mostly 3 things. Number one, it's a symbolical change that China has 3 aircraft carriers. For about 120 years, the Pacific Ocean has been pretty much dominated by the US. And so China is coming over beyond the second island chain. This idea itself is a kind of unprecedented challenge for the United States. The second thing, I think it has to do with China's speed of change. According to Congressional Research Service, a US Congress think tank, in 2024, they released a report this January saying that Chinese, not just aircraft carriers, but all the naval warships altogether, the number already surpassed that of United States sometime between 2015 and 2020. That's what the report says. And also in 2023, the Global Firepower Index, they said that Chinese warships amount to about 700s, almost 800s, while US's account for about 400s and some. and a little bit beyond that. And the last but not least, I think U.S. is concerned about their first island chain. The 3 aircraft carriers may not be enough to overcome the U.S.'s superiority in the regions beyond that, but if U.S. and its allies have take some time to operationalize their security network in this region, China may have more advantage in this contained region in South China Sea and Taiwan. And I think U.S. is concerned about this kind of limited contained superiority of China.
I see. As the two powers are explicitly staging an aircraft carrier race, other Asian nations are bandwagoning and rushing to build and possess aircraft carriers on their own. So, Professor Lee, among these Asian nations with such an ambition, what countries do we need to pay particular attention to?
2 important countries we have to pay attention to. First is India and Japan. And I would like to connect why the United States has ramped up the military cooperation with India and Japan, and why Japan and India itself putting huge efforts to increase the naval capability, especially the aircraft carriers. So one thing here, we have to understand the vulnerability of aircraft carriers. So especially in the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific regions, China has an advantage using the A2AD strategies. In that sense, the United States need a really important security partners. India and Japan's, their primary adversaries are China, right? So in that sense, both countries are relying on United States military preponderance in these regions, but they also trying to invest huge money and effort to build up the naval powers. So India, in that sense, already operating 2 aircraft carriers, and Japan, since the World War II, recently commissioned a light aircraft carriers. So that's the Kaga aircraft carrier. It was originally a helicopter carriers, but they converted into a light aircraft carriers. It's really notable in this light aircraft carrier, Japan is able to carry the F-35B Lightning, the 5th generation jet fighters. And this is a really formidable military power from the Chinese perspective. And by 2027, Japanese government want to build another one aircraft carriers. It's the Kaga sisters warship, the Izumo aircraft, the Izumo light aircraft carriers. So by 2023, we are going to expect that Japan will have 2 aircraft carriers. So this kind of joint military cooperation, especially who really fear about the rise of China, the mounting security threat from Beijing, the Japan, India, United States, they have a really close cooperations to want to maintain the hegemonic power, the military power in the Indo-Pacific region.
Dr. Zhou, so China does it, Japan does it, India does it. What about South Korea?
I would first say that any kind of assets have their own advantages, and but the problem is always that our resources are constrained. And if the question is, do we need them right now above other alternatives, then I personally would answer differently, because if we look at North Korea these days, they have diversified their missile platforms at sea and inland, and they launched their offensive nuclear doctrine and threatened South Korea of using their tactical nukes. And they also recently launched their military satellites, so enhancing their ability to intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance capabilities. So they can see and target better. So for South Korea, in order to respond to these kind of increasing threats from North Korea, I think what we need right now is better concealment, hardening of our strategic forces, and dispersion of the forces. Of course, we will be launching the strategic command in the late year, so we will have integrated command of these strategic assets. But I think that doesn't mean that all the fighter jets and important things should be carried on one platform.
Which is the aircraft carrier.
Yes,
right?
Considering these kind of vulnerabilities and South Korea's position right now, it's not a system we need right now, but of course we need them for longer time scope.
Right.
Experts also say that because aircraft is at sea, for the attacker, it may be easier because you don't have to care about the civilian casualties.
I see.
So that's another vulnerability.
Aircraft carriers represent a country's ability to project its military assets and status as a naval power. But it is also subject to a cost-benefit dilemma. Countries, including South Korea, will make their decisions for the construction of aircraft carriers based upon a clear set of strategic priorities. Let's move on to the next topic. A famous local independent bakery in Daejeon hit the headlines recently. It was reported that its business operation profit was greater than that of a big corporation with national bakery franchise. The case indicates a new trend in Korean culture that consumers are increasingly turn to local brands with time-honored histories and unique stories. Take a look at the video clip first.
A bread vending machine at Daejeon Station? They are bags of Sungsimdang bread stored in luggage lockers at Daejeon Station. In response, internet users proposed that it set up its own bread lockers or the station lockers be replaced with refrigerators. Annually, over 10 million people visit the local bakery Sungsimdang, which has now risen to national fame. Last year, it overtook large franchise brands in terms of operating profit. As of late last year, the accumulated sales of fried soboro, one of Sungsimdang's signature products, reached 96 million units. LA Dodgers manager Dave Roberts was seen happily eating the bread and giving it the thumbs up. Tours of iconic, independent bakeries in local regions are explosively popular, and related social media posts are further driving up their popularity. What makes Sungsimdang more special is its exclusiveness. It has 6 stores only in Daejeon. More people visit Daejeon for the famous bakery and eventually experience other charms of the city. This breathes new life into the local economy and help other businesses thrive too. Moves to rediscover and reassess values of local specialties are speeding up. Generally, local specialties refer to unique, renowned products found in particular regions. These iconic local brands have been brought together. A space showcasing the charms of the local region, a wine made all with locally grown ingredients, and a locally produced and distributed beer. These specialized brands highlighting the distinctive identities of particular local regions are helping invigorate the economy of their cities and communities.
온라인으로 많은 것들을 해결할 수 있는 시대에 사실 오프라인에서 사람들이 주목할 수 있는 거는 각 지역만이 가지고 있는 이런 특수성, 이런 로컬리티, 리콜리즘 이런 것들이라고 생각을 합니다. 이런 로컬리즘을 기반으로 해서 지역만의 컨텐츠를 생산해내는 이런 좋은 로컬 브랜드들이 앞으로의 시대에서는 훨씬 더 가치 있는 브랜드가 되지 않을까라고 생각하고 있습니다.
Cocoa, a local brand in Jeju, roasts cocoa beans itself to craft and sell cocoa products, blended with farm-produced grown in the island like tangerines and carrots.
저희 코코아가 있는 곳이 제주도 동쪽의 굉장히 시골 마을인데요. 여기도 청소년이 지나고 청년이 되면 떠나는 분위기예요. 그래서 그런 시골의 안에 좀 독특하고 유니크한 그런 컨텐츠를 통해서 많은 청년들을 조금 불러 모으게 하는 그러고 싶어서 그러한 시골을 선택하게 되었고요. 이것을 통해서 마을로 유입되는 그런 관광객들도 많거니와 그 마을 사람들끼리 좀 단합의 힘이 만들어지는 것 같아요.
Localism of various different values attract people and lead them to purchase local products.
제가 오는 길에 봤던 전시 중에 하나가 이제 제주를 소개하는 잡지를 하나 봤었는데 그 잡지 책을 이렇게 보면서 한번 놀러 가서 잡지 책에 나와 있는 디저트도 맛보고 공간도 한번 가보고 싶다는 생각을 많이 했습니다.
여러 지역에 방문할 때마다 그 지역의 로컬 브랜드들을 주로 이제 이름이 있는 국내 브랜드들을 방문을 하는 편이기는 하고요. 앞으로도 더 많은 기회가 된다면 로컬 브랜드 많은 방문도 하고 관심도 더 많이 갖는 계기가 된 것 같습니다.
Overcoming the limits of physical space, localism presents a successful model of co-prosperity between businesses and local regions.
It was about Sungsimdang, which is now considered almost synonymous with the city Daejeon. Have you ever heard about this bakery, Sungsimdang?
I didn't live there, but whenever I go to Daejeon, the Daejeon station have the Sungsimdang place, store,
okay.
so I always go there.
So Sungsimdang does not sell its products outside city of Daejeon?
I don't think so.
Yes,
Just
they only have branch only in the
inside.
Daejeon.
So you have to go to Daejeon to
Yes.
enjoy
exactly,
the Sungsimdang
correct,
bakery. Okay.
Yes.
The term local brands refer to products or cultures that originate and gain enduring recognition and fame in particular regions. Professor Lee, tell us more about the definition of the locals or local brands like Sungsimdang.
Yes, it's the local brands actually connotates, it's like the name itself connotates the meaning about local
right.
brand, yes. So Sungsimdang, it's a really local-based bakery, and it's have a really a positive effect in the local economy that introduce, can be really attractive to foreigners, for outside Daejeon citizens. And it's really a clever, I would say, a strategy, a local brand.
I see. Compared to Seoul and mega cities in the capital area, local regions are relatively less developed, but local brands are explosively popular among consumers. So Dr. Jo, what accounts for their success and popularity?
To start from a kind of a political economic perspective, one of the paradoxes is that globalization of economies have brought kind of re-emergence of the locals. So this is a also international phenomenon. I don't know about Sungsimdang very well, but the other local brands tend to have very high social responsibility, the consciousness for that. So they return some of the profits to their local communities. So they have very local support and identity itself. So I think that's one thing. And then there was also studies that the pandemic may have been one of the stimulus to the local brands. Everyone was just confined at home, but Sungsimdang can be only accessed in Daejeon, but other local brands, they could be sent from postal services and so on. So the pandemic could be one thing. And last but not least is, I think, the generational change, the MZ generation. They are very unique generation, including myself, which have very strong personal identities and crave for their own tastes. And local brands tend to be just that. So that's
you don't make any compromise when it comes to your hobbies or your flavors, right? There has been a big concern and warning that more and more local towns have been disappearing. But if these local brands take off and attract consumers from all over the country, their success can make a contribution to helping local regions. Professor Lee, we've been talking about only South Korean cases of the local brands or locals, but what about other cases abroad?
So, for example, United Kingdom, they adopted a local act to boost up the local economy. And for example, Kyoto, Kyoto, they developed a really local brand beer called Asobi. And look, we have to think about why this kind of localization is really important to boost up the economy. So every people have their own kind of desire why we are going to like other places, because we are familiar to our ordinary life. We want to go to a different place to taste a different culture, to taste a different food, or for example, bakery or bread, for example. Then a really good strategy for the local people and local government is to sell a really innovative, original product that is really difficult to consume for the other peoples. And this is a really attractive a strategies that can appeal to the people to come to, for example, to Daejeon or other places. While we are going to Japan, while we are going to Thailand, for example, we want to experience a different taste, cultures. So in that sense, the United Kingdom's Localization Act, it's really important and really can boost up to the local economy. And in that sense, and especially in South Korea, we have the geographical proximity is really tight, right? South Korea is relatively a small country. But when we go to United States, it's a huge state. And every state have their local hamburger. For example, the West Coast has the In-N-Out burger. The East Coast had Shake Shack. I studied studied in Texas,
Right.
they have a Whataburger, their local
Right,
brand.
right.
And they have a different taste.
You're really making me hungry.
And this is really amazing. So
Right.
having a local brand, this is a local brand.
We can talk about these wonderful local brands forever,
Yes.
but Dr. Jo, you don't want these examples to be, short-term success.
Right.
We want them to enjoy sustainable popularity. So what makes local brands sustainable success?
It is basically a kind of a normative phenomenon. It's the identity of the brand really is at the center of this phenomenon.
Right.
So, in any kind of identity is not just one time made. It has to be consistently constructed.
Right.
So consistency is, I think, an important thing. Quality-wise, price-wise, accessibility-wise, consistency is important. And the other thing would be local brands have their own unique relationship between the suppliers and demand. It's kind of responsive, interrelated, different relationship. So we have to foster this kind of relationship. And also, I mentioned earlier about this local brands access or their approach to local communities, and that's, I think, one thing that drives their consistency and sustainability as well.
I see. It's paradoxical that local is growing in its importance and appeal when everything appears to go global. This is all for today's program. Dr. Jo and Professor Lee, thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful experience and insights.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back with other up-to-date issues. Thanks for watching and see you next week.